What is going on, guys? It's the G-Shun here, and welcome to my complete beginner's guide to Destiny Rising. Now, this is going to be a longer video, so I'm going to break it down into chapters so that you can jump to the relevant information that you're looking for. But if you are a complete beginner, I would definitely recommend watching the video through so that you can have a full grasp of everything that Destiny Rising has to offer. Make sure you're using my link in the description below to download the game and my friend code so that you gain some extra game rewards. So grab a snack and some water. Make sure you drop a like if you enjoy the video. Subscribe to the channel for more Destiny Rising content, and let's get right into it. There's a few ways that you can actually play Destiny Rising. You can either play it on an iOS or Android device such as your phone or a tablet, or you can use an emulator such as Mumu Player or BlueStacks, but I would recommend Mumu Player since it's actually created by NetEase, which is the developers of this game. Keep in mind, depending on the device that you are playing with, it is going to have different aspect ratios. For example, here on an iPhone or here on an iPad. You can also either play with your native touchscreen if you are on a phone or a tablet, or you can connect the controller like I have, or if you're on emulator, you can also play with mouse and keyboard. Another thing I wanted to mention for the controller players, if you go to controllers, control settings, you can come down here to customize layout, and you can actually either customize the layout or find your own paste code online somewhere from someone else. You can paste that code in, and then it will modify the way your layout looks. So for example, this code kind of makes it look like I'm more mouse and keyboard and the original Destiny feeling thing with the weapons down here, the mini map here on the left and stuff. So you can go ahead and play around, mess with these objects, see how the layout looks, and tune it into the way you like. Destiny Rising is also a gacha game, so anyone coming from Destiny or that might just not be very familiar with mobile games, the gacha system is a type of game where you are pulling characters with some kind of pull system, and typically there'll be a permanent banner and some kind of limited banner to incentivize people to pull those, and you are going to be one of those characters as you play versus the traditional you build a character, run through it like in an MMO type of styled gameplay. Now I'm going to go over these draws and the best ways to be saving resources and kind of what to look out for and the pitfalls of a gacha system in just a moment, but I wanted to clarify the actual type of game that Destiny Rising is. Now I'm going to go over all the systems in the game because I know it can be very overwhelming with everything that's happening. For example, all of these things, and then even when you go out into the main menu, there's all these icons and things that you might not know what they mean. So I'm going to break them down to you in a very simple way. So over here you have your team level, and this is shared between all of your characters, and it's kind of more attached to your account. Now your team level is leveled up through experience. At the moment the server cap is 80. This was gradually releasing as the game first launched, but now that we're at 80, if you're a new coming player, you should be able to fully progress to level 80 without having any kind of day caps. This team level is important because it unlocks a lot of things in the game, including your like privilege level, which dictates the level of reward you're going to get. At level 71 being tier 7, and once you hit Acclaim 10, which we'll go over the Acclaim system in a moment, it unlocks the maximum level 8 rewards. But it also plays into the attribute bonuses, which basically is giving you an extra 8,000 power and all these health and stats for your characters. The next thing is if you can see where your emblem and your kind of username is, if you click into that, this is where your home page is. Now you can see when you kind of join the game, your player code and all these things. And this is your high overview of your character. So here we have our accommodations. Anyone coming from Destiny, you know what that is, but to the new players, whenever you run any activities, you are able to kind of give one of these cards to the players in your fire team, and they're just a nice way to show off like, hey, this guy did really good in this, or this guy did really good in this. The next thing are your kind of stats here. So for example, in the game, there's currently 10 characters. So it's going to show me that, the amount of weapons you own, all the seals that you have unlocked, and your triumph score, which is kind of your progression system for unlocks and achievements. Down here, it's going to show you your recent obtained kind of items or your big clears, basically stats about your character that are noteworthy. Down here is your emblem, which kind of shows off. You can customize your bio. If clicking into here, you can kind of pick a different emblem or the little backdrop on the fire team. On the emblem, it's going to show your name, your clan or your pack if you're in one, your team level, and a title if you have one. Over here, this is your Acclaim, which I'll talk about in a moment. Here's your shifting gates, which I'll talk about. This is your expanse, and this is your calamity ops, which are kind of some of the end game things that we'll talk about in a moment. Over here, you can like people's profiles and just visit them. It kind of shows that off. Here you can change your name, emblem, title, and your display settings, so you can customize what character you want shown here. This is another way to get to settings, which on a quick note, if you're interested in how to redeem codes, it's an author, and then you press redeem right there. And then you can quickly click that to share and make a little screenshot if you are interested in doing that. Going down, we have stats. Now these are the kind of leaderboard things that the game kind of currently tracks. You can kind of like go in there, see your past games, total kills, for example. This shifting gates is kind of the competitive PvP side of the game. Gauntlet is currently the raid we have, so you can kind of see information and things of that nature through here. You have your season and you have the lifetime depending on which one you want to see. Going down to archives, this is pretty much what it sounds like. This one's currently locked, but you can see, for example, the type of fish you have. There are reward tracks in here, so for example, that's how I get that emblem. Same thing with weapons. You can see all the things, artifacts, all these things. We're going to break these down specifically in a little bit. And down here, you can have your showcase. So you can set up some showcase characters and stuff. So anyone that's visiting or clicking on your thing, they can see that there. Cosmetics is pretty much what it sounds like. These are your skins. This is your overall cosmetic score. Each thing kind of plays into that, your total, and you can kind of click through, see what you own, what you have. Triumphs, these are the same things if you are a Destiny player. If you're not, these are basically our achievements. This is your kind of progression track as you go through here. And your seals, these are where you get these titles. For example, I have the protagonist one from clearing the campaign. And then you can guild it by completing extra challenges. And that basically makes your name on your emblem here have like a gold thing. So it's just kind of a completionist thing for the people that care about. But the other thing is completing these seals and stuff is very nice because they give you these Lumia leaves, which are a very expensive premium currency that you want to be using. Next, we have the mentor handbook. This, once you kind of clear the beginning new light stuff, which here is the main kind of story line that you're going to clear, you're going to have access to the more advanced mentor things. And these are nice because they give you these certain types of mentor tokens, which are a currency that then you can use in a shop. And you get them by helping newer players. So it's just kind of a nice system that they implemented to incentivize helping other players. And finally, you have your social, which basically is showing off little achievements that people have, and you can kind of go through and like them. Now, going into the events tab, this is pretty self-explanatory. Most gacha games will have lots of events running through here. So you'll just want to kind of click through here. These are some of the more important core ones that are happening. So you'll want to make sure you kind of claim these. As you can see, I've completed quite a few of these, share some things, et cetera, et cetera. And then these are kind of the more seasonal on a timely basis as they're running through. Take a look at what there's got. Some of these have really good rewards. For example, there's your Destiny 2 shader or emblem if you're interested in it. The next thing is we have our draw banner. I'll talk about draws more in the section when I talk about them, but that's how you get to that. Here, this is going to be our seasons. We're not in the first season yet. We're currently still in season 0. So this is about to start here on Thursday for us. So this is how you get to that. Battle Pass. This game does have a Battle Pass, and this is how you get to that. Here's your quest to progress through it. This is the Battle Pass. Up here, you can see the currencies, and it kind of just takes you to the shop, which I'll cover the shop in a moment. And now here's the actual shop. In here, there's going to be a bunch of things that you can buy, whether you want to spend money or not. Some of the notable things that you're going to want to pay attention to, especially if you're free to play, is the Lumia leaf. You are able to claim every week some free 10 here and then 10 in the Lumia leaf shop of these Lumia leaves. Make sure you're doing that every week, and then you're able to spend some of these leaves, for example, on the limited edition banner pulls. Also, this is where you kind of get to your cosmetics. For example, Bright Dust. If Destiny players returning, you have the option to use Bright Dust again, and this is another free-to-play way to get cosmetics. Here's our characters. These are all the characters you pull and the appearances that they have. We'll go over characters in a later section in depth. Here's the rankings. These are all the rankings that the game currently is actually tracking on the leaderboard. You have server-wide. For example, I'm on NA, regional, so for state or wherever you are, and then between all of your friends, you can set up your privacy, whether you want to show off like specific things. Here is your inventory. So breaking it down, you have your engrams at the top, which engrams are basically drops that you get that then you can decode or quote unquote decrypt and get a thing. So for example, artifacts, here and here, and then some cosmetic things. There's also weapon ones. Here are all of the weapons. These are mods. These are artifacts. These are kind of our materials and items. Here we have more kind of miscellaneous things like fish. Here are a bunch of our cosmetics such as our decals, and here are some quest items. In this tab, you're able to synthesize weapons and catalysts. I'm going to go over this a little more in the guide, but just pointed that out now. Also, if you're interested, up here, this is your silver, this is your leaves, this is your glimmer, which is kind of the big main currency in the game, and tokens kind of shows off all the other little currencies that you have throughout the game that I'll discuss later. Packs are the guild system for the game. I'm going to go over them in depth in a later section, but that's how you get to them. Settings is pretty self-explanatory, and here this is where you get to mail, friends, and all the other miscellaneous things. The other big things on this screen is your Acclaim system. Once you clear New Light or the intro quest line, you're going to have access to the system. This is how you get into a lot of the end game progression and leveling up your characters to end game levels. For example, at the moment we are at level 18, but I will break this down to you in a little bit. Below that, you have your pinnacle energy, which I'll talk about, and how much you have left for the day, and kind of the time limited things that you want to be able to know and do. And down here is your activities, which basically launches you into being able to go and select things to play. Now, the final thing that you want to look at here is this is your settings. Over here are quests. So for example, oops, not that. So for example, if you click here, I only really have character quests left, but up here you would have your primary quest lines and things. And for example, this is story, character. These I believe are side quests and something else. I can't remember off the top of my head. This one here are bounties. You get high value bounties every day, which you absolutely want to do, and your common bounties, and then that takes you to the bounties reward track. Up here are your characters. So this is one quick way to get to characters. And then this is your fire team. So if you invited someone, they would all kind of show up right here in the top left side of your screen if you're on controller, or I believe it's on the right side if you're on mouse and keyboard. But that's a quick way to glance who is in your fire team. Over here, you kind of pop this out and you have your battle pass, your season, the shop, quick access. Over here you can pull up the events. This is another way to get to your ghost up here. This gets you to the activities as well, and clicking on this kind of gets you to the actual map that you're on. And going to world map, it actually shows off these zones that we have. So currently we have Haven, which is the tower or the basic area that we're in. And then you have Jiangxi, which has 3 sections that you can click through right here, see all the vendors, and same with the other Red Sea area down here. And finally here, you just have your nearbys, your emotes. You can kind of, throw something up above you, or I love this emote, for example, whipping out a fish. And then here you kind of can get to your friends list and things. Another way is if you go into the chat. The chat system is actually quite solid in this game. There's fire team, your nearby, your pack, which is your guild, the mentor channel, which is kind of where if you need help, you can come into and talk, and then your casual. This here is your friends list. You can add all the things. This section here is for the in-game characters. Through quest lines, they kind of just have their little dialogue and stuff, so you can kind of ignore that one. And here, these are kind of the character messages, so you can kind of look through the system, see what people are saying about characters. Same with the weapons. Drift bottles are kind of they're like Reddit posts is the best way I can explain them. So you can kind of, throw one up and people can talk in one, and then this will show people replying to them. So those are all the main navigation and menus that you're going to need to know about in Destiny Rising. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I will answer as fast as I can. We're going to now talk about the draw system and the things you should be aware of. In Destiny Rising, there are currently 2 types of banners. There is the permanent banner, which currently, if you look, we have, not this screen, we have these 3 mythical characters and these 5 legendary characters, as well as all of these cosmetic and other items that you can see here in the shop. And we have limited banners. So for example, we currently have Gwen here. As you can see, this is the only mythical character pulled. And then there are some legendaries and other things that are attached to this banner. These banners are always timed to some extent, so there is an aspect of FOMO, and this is pretty much the standard with Gacha games. And for the limited banner, you're going to be using these limited edition charm ships, whereas on the permanent banner, you're going to be using these more commonly found Bon Voyage chips or charms. You can see that they're not limited here. The primary thing that you want to understand about Gacha games is this currency here, your leaves. You want to be using this for your limited banners. So for example, if you are interested in where you can see to get anything, by the way, you can click on any item and it will show you the source of it here. So for these ships, you can go into these shop, and these leaves, 180 of them can be converted for either the limited edition or the Bon Voyage normal charms. Since the permanent banner is always here, you are in no rush to try to spam and pull these, whereas, for example, Gwen, she's going to be gone in 15 days, so you want to be saving all of your charms and or leaves and converting them into these. For example, we have Estella coming out in 2 days as of this recording. So I have been converting every single spare leaf that I have, especially being a free-to-play player, and converting it into these limited edition summons so that I have the best odds of pulling her. Now I want to cover the pity system. Here you can see that within 60 pulls, in the next 60 pulls, I will pull a Gwen. This is because I have just pulled her. The last time I drew on this was my first Gwen that I pulled, and it will reset back to 60 here and a 1%. As you draw, this percentage gets a little higher. For example, I was extremely unlucky and I pulled her on the 59th pull, and that 59th pull was a 90% chance of pulling her. Here, these are these knockout rewards, so these are kind of some other rewards that you can get, including these cards as you set or pull, and they basically just give, like when you complete a card, it gives you these like little cosmetic sets and stuff, and when you fill this whole thing, you'll get this like little chat emote, and same thing with the limited banner. There's these just little things that you, as you're pulling, you kind of get these little cosmetics. You're also able to do your typical 1 draw or your 10 draw, and as you are drawing, you're also going to get these fortune dust, these crystals. These crystals are nice because you can come into the shop and buy. I would primarily, especially if you're free to play, tell you to be buying these limited edition charms, because you could be buying these like crystals for their upgrades, but with how rare we're getting draws and with limited edition characters, you want to be boosting your chances of getting a limited edition character as best as you can. So you will naturally pull these characters as you progress, so it's not as important to pull for these. And then you also have the fortune dust, which is a very, very important thing because, for example, these incandescent clusters, these are some of the most end game materials that you need in the game, and you are capped out at 5 a month. So you want to be making sure you're coming in here and buying them out as you're pulling this fortune dust through the pulls. Now I wanted to also touch on the standard banner. There is this mythic choice kind of pity. So within 180 pulls, for example, I've done 139. On my 180th pull, once I clear that, I will be able to kind of select a character of my choosing, and that will automatically give me that character. So if you are extremely dry on a character, you will be able to pull that. And I believe as they release more characters into the standard or permanent banner, you will be able to kind of pull for those like that. You can also click on these trials here, and you're able to kind of hop in and play around with a character, for example, a limited edition character, and see if you actually want to pull for that character if you like that character enough. That wraps up how to get the characters. So now let's take an actual detailed look into those. So this is what your character's home screen is going to look like. On the left, you can see all of the characters that you have pulled, as well as the archives, so that you can kind of look what's available. You can filter here by power or whatever. Here you have appearances, so this is where your cosmetics and ghosts and emotes kind of go, and you can save out a few loadouts. This allows you to favorite the character, and this kind of lets you kind of check their card and see what people are saying about them. Now in Destiny Rising, there are kind of, as you've noticed, 2 types of characters. There are legendary characters and there are mythic characters. The main difference is the 500 power level, and typically 5-star characters are going to be of a higher quality. Currently in Destiny Rising, there are 3 subclasses, that being Arc, Solar, and Void. This is important for activities, especially, for example, certain enemies will have a arc type of shield, and you're going to want to have weapons and characters that do arc damage to break those shields to damage them effectively. Characters also have different roles: offensive, defensive, and support, as well as different combat styles, whether they're close range, medium range, and long range. And these are kind of nice to look out for. For example, here, if you go into like an activity, say I go into here and take a look, you can see that this one is saying there's a lot of close range combat and medium range combat is recommended, so you can kind of keep a mental note of that, as well as, you know, there's going to be void shields and solar shields, so you're going to want to have a character for that, as well as the type of shinkas. We're going to talk about these in a little bit, but for example, rapid fire or impact shinkas, and that kind of is an important thing that you want to look out for as you're deciding which character to run for an activity. Now each character has their own kind of weapon architecture. For example, my Ningfei here, he has submachine guns, auto crossbows, whereas if you take a look at my wolf, he's auto rifles and grenade launchers. So as you're going through activities, these are going to be kind of important things because each type of weapon does a certain different type of damage against shinkas. And I'll touch upon these a little more later, but for example, machine guns and crossbows, they have the symbol there. This here means auto rapid fire, and there are, I believe, 4 types, which we'll discuss, but that's another thing to look at for when you're picking your character. Now, another thing is each character has proficiency, and this goes from the novice to the grandmaster, and you are able to unlock the proficiency level as you go by playing with that character through certain types of events, including spending pinnacle energy. This is important to do because if you take a look at your quests, there are certain character quests that you need to complete to get these loot, but they're locked behind proficiencies. For example, my Caber is needs to be novice 2 before I can actually go in and use that quest. The other thing I'm going to quickly mention is the Light Link companions. Once you hit Acclaim level 15, I believe, you're able to unlock your second one, but this is basically where you're able to come in and pick one of the characters you own and kind of attach their ability to your character. So for example, I have Caber here and on my Ning, so he is increasing arc damage by 3.5% and then has his buffed abilities by 14. You're able to progress these percentages by the talents. So for example, if some character is currently using my Ning to boost, once I get to the 6th talent tree, I am able to get the maximum percentage boost there. But since I'm only at the second part, I would only be getting the second option on that bar. Now, each character has a overall power level. Roughly 65,000-ish is the current kind of max where people are at. I'm not fully sure what the power level will continue to rise up to, but I wouldn't be surprised if we pushed into that roughly the 80,000s. Most of the current endgame kind of content is right around 65,000-70,000, but like I said, that might change and most likely will change as we continue to get competition mode raids and things of that nature. Now, relics for your character are basically your abilities and passives and your weapon mastery. Each character has a passive. For example, here's Ning's phase, and you can kind of read it, and it's also dictating how much power this is kind of giving you, as well as your 2 signature abilities. Each one can be upgraded to 18. For example, here is max, and you can click detailed or brief here to kind of see more details. Clicking in here, it will display a video of what it does, as well as your kind of ultimate, and this is all the resources you need to progress. If you are still a new light, you should have an option here to press like a red button here, kind of like this, that allows you to pull out your resources. This is important if you are kind of playing around and testing with characters. You want to make sure that you kind of, once you're about to be finished with the campaign, you want to pull out all the resources out of all the characters you're not using, because they're kind of expensive and you're going to need a lot of resources. Make sure you utilize that as you can. You also have these passive relic traits kind of to upgrade as you're progressing. They're going to be locked behind power caps, and then once you hit a certain level, you're able to unlock it, and it kind of boosts you another, for example, this one's boosting me another 800 power, and it's giving me faster reload speeds and things of that nature. Weapon mastery is another very important thing. Each class has one up to level 5, and it's, for example, it's currently locked behind Acclaim, which I'll talk about, but that's why I'm not 5 out of 5. And these are also things that kind of boost your character and have a lot of synergy with your actual weapons. Now, the talent tree requires you to have multiple pulls of each character. Anytime you get a character pull that's a duplicate, you're going to obtain these light crystals. For example, this is the Ning phase. Here, you can either get some in the fortune shop, but I would recommend not doing that because your currencies here are more valuably spent on actually trying to get more draws. But they allow the character to progress and level up more abilities here, as you can read them, as well as it unlocks this dynamic profile picture after you obtain the maximum amount of them. And the other thing the talent tree plays into is what I mentioned previously, is the companion links. The more talents that you have maxed out, the higher this percentage bar is going to be filled up for that character when someone else is using them. Next up is the lore section. As you progress through the story, it's going to give you these progression bars. The only one that I'm going to note is the diary. So for example, here on my Gwen, I have this diary entry that I haven't completed, and you can see going in here after I completed that one. So for this one, it was getting your proficiency up. I'm getting able to claim some Lumia leaves. Now let's talk about weapons. Each character is going to have 2 weapons, and like I previously mentioned, the types of weapons are locked to a specific character. For example, this is his kit. Gwen has sidearm shotguns. Your primary is going to be here in your first slot, and then your secondary or your heavy is going to be your secondary slot here, and it's this symbol here, the purple, is the symbol for for heavy ammo. Now, just about everything in this game has a gear level. For example, right now it is 80, and once the season comes out, it looks like we're going to be getting to push up to 85, which we're going to need these little season metastable cores. Now, the way you can level up a weapon is if you go into the raise level, it will either allow you to kind of dump these upgrade cores, or you can come in and use weapons that you previously had. But the thing you need to know is that once a weapon is, for example, 50, I can no longer use 40 weapons to upgrade this weapon. I have to now use the same level or higher weapons to continue to progress my weapons level. Now, the next thing is the enhancement level. Just like in Destiny, this is the exact same system. It basically just progresses your power, DPS, and damage on your weapon. This is one of the things, no matter where you are in the progression of your character, you can pull out materials for a certain amount of loss. Legendaries and lower, you don't lose Glimmer, but at Mythics and higher, you're going to lose some materials. And this is just another important thing that you want to quickly go through and max out to make sure that you're getting that extra damage boost and power boost. Now, traits on a weapon are very important. This is what people refer to getting a god roll and things of that nature, when you get 2 of the perks that you are searching for that are the best for that weapon. Mythic perks are always going to be the best because they offer 800 power per each perk, whereas, for example, legendaries only offer 350 and the rares are even lower at 300. The other thing with mythic perks is that they actually stack with your scopes. So, for example, on this trait here, this culture clash one, if I was to have this perk upgraded, I would be getting an extra 10 damage against Cabal and Fallen. The way you find that is if you click this here, you can see that I need this SC Hollow scope or mod. I'll talk about mods in a moment, but this is what the mod looks like, and then you can see here's the sources. Typically you'll try to pull these from the choice bundles that you're going to get, but this is how you stack the perks on. So this is just another thing that you're going to have to grind out to try to find these rolls to make your weapons even better. The other thing that I'm going to mention is the extra foundry effect. For example, this one is a 6.5% damage boost. The way you get that is I'll mention it later when we talk about the Acclaim system, but when you complete a weapons kind of tier collection, it's going to give you a boost of some kind of stat. So for example, all of these weapons here, once we clear them, we are getting this, for example, one is giving us a 2.5% damage to this origin trait. So that covers traits. They will always roll randomly, so you will see people storing up a lot of their mythic engrams and just rolling into them so that they can get the highest level trait that they possibly can. Now, the big meat and potatoes of weapons are the mods. So just like all the other mods, there are, if I go into this here, the same tiered. We got rares, legendaries, mythics, and exotics. You can apply exotics to all 3 slots. It's not like weapons where you're capped to 1. And each one also has a weapon level or mod level. So for example, this is 3, this is 4. And this is important because you can see in this first trait, it's actually boosting my trait here to a level 4 trait right there. This one is also level 4. If I go into a different weapon here, for example, this one is a level 5. So I have a level 5 mod magazine on this one here, as you can see. Now you want to make sure you're upgrading your magazines, enhancing them kind of to the maximum level. This takes some of the materials that you'll see as you're playing. Here I can point some out. Here, these mod frags. And once you're on an exotic and mythical one, it's going to take either the Mobius clusters or the orange ones that you get through the Morgan's Prey. Now mods are exclusive to a weapon. So for example, enhancement levels, these track between every gun of the same name. So here on my wolf pack, every single one has a +9 enhancement. So you can enhance one to max and not have to worry about enhancing every other one. Gear level, on the other hand, doesn't. Gear level, you have to max out the gear for every single weapon individually. Same goes with mods. Mods apply to all the same gun are like names family. So if I have this wolf pack and I put these mods on it, this wolf pack also gets access to these mods. But the thing with mods is once you apply one to a weapon, you can no longer remove that mod. It will the weapon basically consumes it, and the only way to get rid of it is to dismantle it. So you want to be careful when you're applying mods to make sure you're kind of reading them and not wasting your really good ones just randomly. You want to be saving them for the weapons that are going to synergize the best with mods. You can also quickly lock your weapons here with these little locks, and you can auto dismantle weapons here as well. For example, I always go in and just legendaries and lower, I quickly dismantle them, confirm, and you get some of these enhancements back and some glimmer. Over here we have the cosmetics. So if you have a skin that you want to apply, you can go in here and that's how you would apply that. And the same thing, this is just a little kind of review card for the weapon. Weapons also drop from a plethora of locations. Mainly you're going to be doing strikes to get these engrams, but you can get them from all sorts of things. For example, even all the way down to shadow duels that you have a chance of mythic weapons dropping, or even fishing. You can fish one out of the pond. Iron bar. So many activities are going to be dropping the weapons. A quick easy way to see what something is dropping is when you're looking at the rewards, you can kind of scroll through here and take a look. This is pinnacle, this is basic. I'll touch upon this in a moment, but you can see like, oh, here 34% chance, here guaranteed. The other thing I was going to mention is these symbols here. This is stating that there's one mythic mod on it, and if you looked here, you have 2 mythic mods. So anytime you have these 2, you want to be making sure you're checking them to see if they are the kind of god rolled weapon that you're looking for. The other thing I'm going to mention is exotics. Each character can equip one exotic, and the way they work is a little different. They have a predetermined kind of trait. The level and the enhancement you can apply, but the traits are exotic exclusive. And then once you go in here, this is the catalyst. So the catalyst is something that allows you to give the weapon extra perks. The first catalyst on this weapon allows us to hip fire with 25% over penetration. This requires an actual catalyst, which you get by synthesizing it with these contextual data sets, which we get from the legendary campaign. After that, the second and third upgrade require 1 and 2 more of the weapon, as well as these photons and more of these threads. So that's why dupe exotics are very important. You don't want to dismantle them until you max out one of them trees. And down here, these are the catalyst boosts. So these just simply use the infusion cores, but they give you just basic power as well as things like range and basic damage stability. So these are other things that you want to make sure you're filling out. If you're going to be using the weapon, don't just go and dump the cores and stuff into these, because these are quite rare and you want to make sure you're using them on an exotic that you're actually going to be utilizing on your characters. So that pretty much covers everything you need to know about weapons. If you have any questions, I will answer them. Just leave them down in the comment. Next up, we have artifacts. So artifacts are kind of going to be, I would say, our more grindy aspect of the game. You get them through either the engrams that can kind of drop through certain activities, as like for example this one we get through the battle pass, lets you pick an exotic, and primarily through the realm of 9 things. So each season, I believe it is, we get to do the expanse, which you grow through and you clear 20 of these levels, and at the end you're getting some mythics and exotic choices. But the primary way that you're going to be doing them is through the singularity chaos. Here you get to set the wish list of which type of artifact you want for each slot, and then you are able to run this event over and over. This specifies the subclass of the exotic that is going to be dropping. So for example, if I'm doing void, only void artifacts are going to drop, and only characters that have the void subclass are going to be able to take that artifact. That's something you want to keep in mind to make sure that you're applying them to the right character. Now there's 4 types of artifacts slots here, and we have as well as this gilded gilding. I'm going to talk about the gilding in just a moment. But the artifacts themselves have a set effect. So as you can see, each different slot has a different set effect, and each artifact can't be used by every character. There are certain characters that can only equip certain artifacts. But for example, when you're setting the wish list, you can see the type of characters that can wield that artifact. So you're going to want to kind of pay attention to that. Now, each artifact is going to have randomly rolled attributes. These are the things that are going to be making and breaking our builds and why everyone's grinding for them. So for example, on a Ning here, I would probably want things such as, you know, arc boost, maybe ability strength, things of that nature, maybe something with mobility, things that are very nice and synergizing with our build to boost it. Each artifact also has an attribute score. So for example, if you click into here, you can see that every tier is unlocked by a certain amount of points. I have 68 at the moment, so that means I'm in this tier 3. The more attribute points that you rolled, you get to get a higher tier, and you get that higher set bonus. This is displaying the artifact's power. Artifacts also have a gear level like weapons, and as well as an enhancement level. But the way that artifacts kind of differ is they have a, once you hit level 80 with one, you are allowed to refactor a artifact. So if I go into hopefully one of these you can see that if I was to press this refactor button, here I'll do it just for the video, it will re-roll these stats at a 35 to 55 chance. This will slowly level up our artifact, but it's going to take multiple tries, and that's where this luck system comes in. After the 12th try here, I would be able to get a guaranteed upgrade. It starts off, I believe, at 3 or 6, and the more you roll, the more luck is going to be required. This number is going to grow, making it more and more expensive, and so you're going to be running out of these heaps very quickly. So you're going to want to do that to squeeze out more power as you're progressing your character, as well as you can use attribute transfers. So if you have 2 of the same type of relic, you can actually transfer the attributes over to that relic. If for some reason that relic is a more suitable relic, has nicer rolls or something of that nature, and you're wanting to move it over, you can also click this to kind of have an overview of all of the attributes that you have on your character. This shows your total artifact score at a brief glance, and going into this is your gilding. So this is a fixed, once you buy it, you kind of can't unactivate it or anything, and they cost a lot of these materials, but they slowly increase the stat values of your health, shield, and defense as you progress. And this is just going to be something that the acclaim level is going to force you to do, and you're going to want to simply just do it overall in general, because it's going to boost your power as well as your substats like your health. And to get a lot of these fruit and stuff, you're going to want to make sure you're running the singularity thing with your pinnacle. It's a pretty important high up ordered way to spend pinnacle, because these fruit don't come often and you need a lot of them to fill out these sub trees. The other thing I was going to mention is you can equip multiple exotic artifacts. You're not limited to just one, like a weapon. So once you have a lot of exotics, you're going to be safe to kind of start burning off your mythical, legendaries, rares, and gain resources back to upgrade these more. So that is everything that you need to know to get started with artifacts. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment and I will get back to you on those. I want to cover all the activities that you have access to now, starting off with shifting gates here on the left. This is currently our only ranked form of PvP, PvE. It's kind of like Gambit for any returning Destiny players, where the objective is to kill ads and players and then collect these motes and deposit them. I do have a detailed guide on my channel if you are specifically interested in shifting gates, so take a look at that. But the rewards for the pinnacle energy here are alright, especially for these translation credits that I will talk about in the store later. But you get a free one of these pinnacle rewards every single week. You want to make sure you just hop in there and do your weeklies, at least, even if you don't like the game mode, just for the rewards of the materials. And then I'm going to touch upon the casual side here very quickly. Some of these are time gated. For example, the iron bar is time gated to Fridays and Mondays. This is pure PvP, kind of like Crucible, and it isn't ranked or anything, though. It's casual, so don't feel like you are going to be rushing leader rankings or anything like that in there. That goes the same with Sparrow Racing, where it's set to certain hours during the day. The shadow duels as well are from 1 to 1, and fishing is an all-day activity that you run around to ponds and fish for fish, and you can also catch weapons. I do have a detailed guide on fishing if you are interested in seeing that, and I'm putting out a detailed guide on shadow shaper duels here shortly, as well as the Sparrow Racing. You will be able to progress your casual bar down here for activities, which will net you these overclocked capacitors, which allow you to spend double pinnacle energy to get double loot. So if you are trying to get double loot faster, that is the way you do it. You gain the ability or the progress bars here by completing a set amount throughout the day. As you can see here, these refresh every day. I'm going to touch upon the Iron Commander here as well. You are able to every day buy 2 tickets by spending 20 acclaim or pinnacle for one of these authorization tokens, and this is good for resources because you gain 10% rewards buffed compared to actually running the activity. So, and it's an AFK 2-hour duration, so if you want to quickly just burn some pinnacle energy, especially for resources, throw some pinnacle energy into here and you are able to gain those resources in a passive way. Now, just in case I haven't actually mentioned it, pinnacle energy is the primary kind of currency we use in the game to be able to loot more expensive loot. For example, you get 120 a day and it's capped at 360, so you want to make sure you're doing that. And this is the pinnacle reserves that you can either buy in the shop or the bundle, so that, and I don't believe this has a cap, you can kind of stack that as much as you can. And this is what I was talking about with the pinnacle energy. These are the kind of like the pinnacle rewards, and then down here would be basic rewards. Here's a better example. If you click on this tab here, these are the pinnacle rewards that you have, and then if you're not using pinnacle energy, these would be the basic rewards you'd be getting. So the actual adventure tab is kind of broken down into sections. It's also broken down into the Lumia leaves and like upgrade materials, weapons, artifacts. So the subtypes of rewards you can get. I'm gonna just go through them here as they are in the list. Haven Ops are kind of your strikes. You have normal and heroic strikes. Rewards here are solid for a lot of weapon mods and upgrades for primarily weapon focused items. Calamity Ops is a ranked system that also has a lot of the kind of weapon focused items, but it is ranked, and each season you are able to, depending on your rank, get a lot of like Lumia leaves. It is if you come from Destiny, it is basically a Nightfall styled thing where you are rushing for a certain amount of points in a run to be able to progress to the next rank. Realm of the Nine is the primary place we're going to be getting our artifacts and our elemental fruits that I was mentioning earlier. This first one is a one-time run through, and you get a bunch of fruit and engrams and stuff and like little charms. You absolutely want to complete that. It also drops these strange coins, which as you're progressing through, you want to kind of upgrade this tree like so fully. I have the maxed out tree now, and these give you like buffs and perks throughout the game mode, so you want to make sure you're putting your coins into this. Singularity Chaos is the primary place that you will be grinding. I mentioned this in the artifact part, but this is where you get to set the artifacts you wish to gain, and then get a bunch of fruit and these rerolls for exotics and stuff. Basic rewards does drop exotic artifacts, but at a much smaller 2.4% chance versus the 7.2. So this is primarily one of the places that people will be dumping their pinnacle energy as they're grinding for artifacts. Like I mentioned, they are specific to the type of character you're using, and I believe Chaos allows you to get any, it looks like any of the subclasses, but I would recommend you focus one of the elemental burns, for example, so that you know it's all arc and you can like run, for example, a Ning and kind of clear the rooms really fast. And the final thing is the Expanse. This is, I believe, on a seasonal kind of timer. There's 2 levels, and you absolutely want to clear this because it's giving you so much fruit for each clear. A bunch of Lumia leaves, a bunch of these piles of dust, and a guaranteed exotic chests for the artifacts. This is a little rough, but once you get up to the power, you should be perfectly fine. And it is a ranked leader thing, which I keep forgetting to mention it, but each leaderboard activity, whether it's fishing or shifting gates, actually has a seasonal reward. So for server wide, you get these titles, which are kind of neat, as well as, for example, if I go to here, some of them will have regional and administrative regional, but the server wide one is the nice gold looking one. So if you're interested, that is how you kind of gain one of those. Next up we have is Gauntlet Ops. This is kind of our 6-man raid. Gauntlet Blitz is the current kind of more so beginner friendly, teaches you some of the raid mechanics. You gain a bunch of the weapon styled items as well, and it kind of has exotic adventurer almost loot pool. And then the Gauntlet Onslaught is our first kind of focused raid where we have specific weapons for the raid. For example, this crossbow is from the first encounter, and it is the most broken thing in PvP right now on Ning. The second one, the Menace, drops the shotgun, which is really strong on Gwyn. And the third one, the Tabernacle, is where you get the LMG, the Gallows. Each week you get 3 bonus pulls of loot, so when you're spending your pinnacle, you get a 15% chance at exotic, and then it drops down to 3% and 1% for basic. I recommend you just only focus in these weekly boosts, and then focusing your pinnacle into other things that will actually progress your character. This also has leaderboards, and you can rush for ranks and stuff if you're interested in doing so. Legendary campaign unlocks once you clear the campaign, and this is important especially for our contextual datas, which allow us to build catalysts for our weapons and getting these photons, which are extremely rare. You get 3 focus boosted drops a week. The challenge mode is also nice because it gives you this extra gold chest if you clear it fast enough for these Mobius clusters. You are able to kind of borrow characters on certain of the challenge modes, so if you have a friend that has much higher characters, you are able to do that. Don't feel rushed to do it in a day. You can spread it out throughout the week. The heroics are cleared once and that's done, and then you want to primarily focus on the challenge because these will refresh every week. I'm going to pass challenge mode in just a moment and go to Morgan's Prey. Morgan's Prey is where we get a bunch of you can select either the prisms, and I recommend getting the mod enhancements because these are the most important things for a lot of our mods. I seem to be running out of them all the time, but you probably want to be running this through the Iron Commander so you get that 10% boost in weapons, and you get a 6-time daily loot cap. So basically after 6 times, I won't be able to get this boost of items. This is 3 out of 3 to begin with, but once you unlock the Acclaim level that doubles this, which I'll talk about in a moment, that's how you unlock 6. And you always want to be focusing on doing the heroic, the hardest versions, because it drops the highest tier weapons and loot. And then legacy, kind of the same thing. This drops the relic ability upgrades. So when you're upgrading your character's relic, for example, a void character, you're going to need a lot of these void sheaths. You can specify which character you want to focus on, which subclass I mean. It will drop higher amounts of that item. And like I said, these are the pinnacle, these are the basics. So another thing that you probably want to do on auto farm, so you get 10% more of the loot. And now finally, the big kind of end game stuff. Currently master activities are locked, but we have or challenge grandmasters, but master activities are unlocked at the moment, and we get these keys, which we get every single week at the beginning of the week. 3 of these keys, and you can buy some more for silver, and they allow us to basically primarily with the keys get a bunch of the exotic weapon mods and upgrade materials for them with the keys. So you don't even need to use pinnacle energy here. You could. Pinnacle energy also drops mods and a bunch of weapon upgrades, so it is recommended if you're running through it. But the thing with this is you're limited to what characters you can use, and they rotate on a schedule. So for example, today is Sunspot, and tomorrow will be Molten Overload, which will be Solar Void, and they will change the characters that you are allowed to use, as well as you are only allowed to use 1 character per day, and then that character is kind of like on a cooldown until the next day. Grandmasters are going to be kind of the same thing, I believe, but with the same kind of loot, but at a much higher difficulty. I'll make a guide about it once it kind of unlocks, but this is also locked behind Acclaim 15, so if you're not able to access this, that's another thing that you're going to need to raise up before you are able to access this. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the bounties. As you're playing throughout the day, you're going to get 4, I believe, that refresh, and they stack up to 3 days, and they unlock the weekly progress here for these exotic weapon parameters and these frontline keys, which I'll talk about in a moment, as well as you complete them, you get seasonal engrams for that season for a bunch of cosmetics, and these drop a heck of a lot of team experience. So if you are still trying to get to level 80, make sure you're doing these every day. The common ones aren't infinite, but they're a little less important. They still boost you and get stuff, but they're not as important as the high valued ones. So quickly pointing out those frontline keys here, you can see I have 1 left. They refresh every week if you don't use them, but if you go to one area of the map, you will see this kind of purple thing, and it is the frontline boss rewards. So it's the public event, and if you go in there and clear the boss, you can use the key, and it gives you a chance at the mods. The only other difference between the 2 planets is the Jiangxi area drops prisms, where the Red Sea Rift area, it drops, instead of those, it drops the relic abilities, the tough to upgrades here in the ribbons. Now the other thing I wanted to quickly mention is the training grounds. You can get to it through by clicking that acclaim system or your levels, and then going to the training grounds. These are very important because they describe all of the kind of basic fundamentals of the game, including the Shinkas. So rapid fire Shinkas look like this, and they have a massive amount of these little ticks. The weapons you want to use are basically these rapid fire architecture, and it's notified by this symbol. So on your weapons that I previously mentioned, any weapon that has this rapid fire symbol is very strong against Shinkas, because this shield basically needs a lot of damage really fast to bust it down, and once you break that shield, it will stun the enemy. Next we have is piercing Shinkas. These basically need kind of like sniper, fusion rifle weapons, scout rifles, hand cannons, and you aim at this orb up here, and it will break the shield and stun them. The thing with these is if you're shooting them, they will shoot these tracing rifles back at you, so you want to be making sure that you're using the appropriate weapons to break their shields, otherwise you're going to be taking a lot of damage. Spread Shinkas are Shinkas that use projectile weapons like grenade launchers and rocket launchers that have these floating orbs around them that need to be destroyed. You can destroy these with normal weapons, but a rocket launcher will typically destroy all of them in one hit, so it's a much faster and efficient way to break the shield and then be able to damage the enemy normally. And finally, impact Shinkas. These are Shinkas that have a bubble around them, and you have to go inside and hit them with either a shotgun or a sword, and when you're in the shield, you are taking damage, so keep a note of that. If you need to walk out of the shield for a moment to regen, do so. The shield stun at the bottom won't regenerate until you fully break it, and he stuns and then stands back up. And then there's some other quick trainings here. For example, teleport, like the Fallen can kind of teleport, the stances and stuff, how to break them, the regenerative things that ogres do. So for example, you'll want to, like a wolf, he can throw a corrupt that it prevents enemies from regenerating health. So you'll want to keep an eye out on those kinds of things. And once you complete all these trainings, you're going to unlock just more Lumia leaves for more pulls. Now the next thing down here are the training grounds for the characters. These characters are unlocked once you actually pull the character, and there are 2 modes that you go through them, and once you clear both, you will make progression on this bar, as well as claiming some more Lumia leaves once those bars fill up. So you want to make sure you do these, and it's a quick intro to how to play the character. And this is the overall training grounds for characters that even you haven't unlocked, so before you pull something, if you want to test one out, you can do that here. Now, packs are the kind of clan or guild feature, is what they're called in certain other games, that allows you to team up with players and take on objectives. The big objective currently in Destiny Rising are these pack hunts. Each week you are able to come in here and the board gets reset, and you are able to challenge all these kinds of nodes. Whether it's going out to explore one, you are going to get certain pack rewards as well as personal rewards, and as you complete these exploration and encounters and different types of encounters, you unlock different tiers of rewards, and this is probably the primary way that we are going to be getting these black market coins. You are given 1 action point per day, and then as you spend pinnacle energy throughout the week, you are able to gain an extra, I believe this is 9, so another 6, so 15, 22 action points per week are able to be used. You want to make sure that you are using these and contributing to your pack, as you want to be able to help gather as much of these resources that all help upgrade the pack and all the players in general. The other thing that's going to be a big help upgrading is the SPI drill. This upgrades the higher your pack hanger is, and you're able to gain more of these SPI tokens, which I will describe in the shop. You are also able to go into the hangar and hang out in here, as well as the practice range. So if I hop in here, players are able to come in here and do all kinds of tests, as well as you are able to test people's kind of characters. So I believe characters that are kind of the higher tiered power in your pack will automatically show up here, and so you can kind of come in here and check out what the stats they're running and artifacts, and you can give them a test run. Back here you can test, set up different things. So for example, if I place this, I can come in here and do tests for weapon damage and things like that. So if you're testing builds and stuff, this is where you're gonna have to come and do it. And you're actually also able to just go into your wolf den. In here you are able to build furniture, place furniture. You can set this as your home spawn instead of setting it to haven. So if you and your community just want to hang out in here, it's kind of a nice place. You can decorate it, plant some trees and stuff. Now we're going to talk about how to actually access a lot of the end game, and that is through the Acclaim system. Now you unlock the Acclaim system once you pass the campaign and I believe hit level 80. You can see if I go in here, I've already completed the advanced section, which is for the campaign, and then I just have some optional quests that I just need to do, and now I have full access to the Acclaim system. Now there's 2 ways to rank up in the Acclaim system, primarily through legends. These are your characters. As you complete these tasks, it's going to give you medallions and experience, as well as you complete weaponry, it's going to give you experience and unlock weapon mods and boosts. I do have a much in-depth detailed guide of Acclaim system, but I'm going to go over the basics here that you need to know to get started. So as you are progressing through there, you're going to progress through this track here. You're going to notice that once you hit, I believe it's 9 at first, you're going to be locked here where you need to get 3 bronze medallions to be able to progress. The way you do that is on a character, you're going to have to complete the bronze challenges to unlock that coin. Once you complete 3 of those coins, you're going to be able to progress, and that applies to multiple things. So for example, here I'm going to need 1 coin to be able to progress to 20. The other nice thing is as you're going down the reward track, you're going to get different types of loot, as well as a lot of this end game stuff. For example, this is how we upgrade for another operation and all kinds of things. So for example, if you saw earlier some of my artifacts, I might be able to go up a little higher level than you, or for example, Grandmasters, they unlock at 15. A lot of these things are locked behind the Acclaim track. So if you are interested, you can come into the levels and see where certain things unlock. So for example, at 20, I'm going to unlock double the reward ability in Onslaught, boosted artifact drops, and things of that nature, as well as all these other things and these crystals. This is how we max out that free-to-play character that we get by claiming them through the Acclaim system. And I know, for example, 25 is where we get the unlock to our final weapon mastery. I'm not sure if 29 is the highest. It is what is currently shown from me, but there might be a higher thing. And the Acclaim boosts that we get through the medals, you want to make sure you're absolutely applying these, because they do things such as, you know, exotic artifact drop rates are now increased, extra light links. This is what I was talking about, being able to attach another character to you, your current guardian, and a lot of other really good things. For example, doubling the chances we can get at raids. So instead of 3 boosted things, we'd be getting 6. Same with legendary. A lot of really good things in here that we're going to get. So you want to slowly progress through the system. Now, don't worry if you're not able to in the day. This is a very much marathon versus a sprint, because it's going to take a large amount of resources to get into the gold, because like, for example, you need 65,000 power as well as all these other things to even be able to get a single gold medal, and there's a lot of characters to do that for. So don't feel rushed if you're not able to max out the acclaim. Just take it at your pace and work on a couple characters at once. And finally, I'm going to briefly mention the shops. A lot of these things are on a monthly and weekly reset. I have a video that I'll link talking about all the dailies and monthlies and weeklies and the resets and the shops that you want to look at in detail. But on a quick glance, a lot of the currencies that we are getting through the game, for example, like events or our pulls here and stuff, or even our pack, our SBI coins, you're going to want to come in here and buy those things out, focusing on the more exotic, very rare components, saving for those because they're going to be a lot more limited and a lot harder to get, as well as our black market coins that we're getting through those passes. I do have another guide specifically about black market if you want a detailed guide, but the general gist is you getting these coins through a lot of the pack cons, and then you're able to come in here, get them. You can sell some of your items for more coins or complete these bounties to get more of the coins. And with that, we have concluded my beginner's guide to Destiny Rising. If you guys have any still concerns or questions or topics you'd like to see me make videos on, please don't hesitate. Make sure you drop them in the comment, and I will either respond or make some kind of dedicated video for that. If you guys did get anything valuable out of this video, it'd mean the world if you guys dropped a like and subscribe to the channel. This video took a very long time to put together, and I'm going to continue to cover Destiny Rising as much as I possibly can. So if you are enjoying the game, make sure you subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. Happy grinding, and I will see you in the next one.